I'm better at digitalizations and they're older, and this whole working culture is so conservative.
Understand that people have experienced the world in different ways.
So my name is Iréne Kilubi. I am from Germany. I'm located in Munich, and I have founded an initiative called Joint Generations. In my first life, I used to be a business engineer, and nowadays I'm following my passion. Have a small agency called Brandpreneurs and Brandfluencers, where I advise pioneers, change makers, and thought leaders.
I'm Rosie, and I'm currently working in cybersecurity. And on top of my full-time job, I'm also a podcast host and a speaker.
What generational communication problems have you encountered before, and how did you overcome them?
I think generational communication problems are particularly likely in the early stages.
New employees came into the company or into the department. What I noticed that they were sometimes rushing a lot. So I would always recommend to first ask questions.
Studies show that if each person feels that their identity is valid and validated, then they'll contribute more.
And always keep asking questions and not pretend as if I just come straight from university. I know it better. I'm better at digitalizations and they're older. And this whole working culture is so conservative.
So an example that I've come across is like the speed of processes and the typical shorter attention span of Generation Z.
Be empathetic, be respectful, appreciate what is already there.
So having grown up with technology from birth, Gen Z are sort of accustomed to like instant gratification through reactions and comments on social media.
Supervisors are the link between the different generations. They have to consider the needs and expectations of the younger employees as well as the older ones, right?
And this means that they tend to seek immediate, frequent feedback.
People were very, very much focused on, okay, I need to have clear guidelines. Nowadays, in particular, the younger want to have a certain degree of freedom on how they can express themselves.
Senior leaders can really leverage that feedback culture as a positive thing to optimize performance and to deliver business goals. So I think like clear, transparent communication is obviously really important.
Right? So you have to understand their language. Yeah. And what they want and what their expectations and desires are.
And an example of how to overcome this would just be telling your colleagues how you like to receive communication.
It's pretty sad because most of them, they ask themselves, what do the young people need? How can we attract the young people? And for me, that's not new work. New work is for me like, what does the workforce need?
Whether that be Teams or instant messages or email or video call. And another thing to bear in mind is that communication is reciprocal. So you have to think as well about like how communication is being received. Think about your audience, but also if you're on the receiving end of that communication, it's so important to have like an open heart and to have empathy and understanding that people have different lived experiences and are coming from different generations as well.
How would you go about bridging the generational communication gap?
There is any tension between generations in the workplace. It's often based on having prejudices towards the other generation.
I think one, listen to learn, because people from different generations typically hold different worldviews and values, and these differences can easily lead to misunderstanding.
What I've experienced most of the time, older generations fear of being outcompeted by the younger colleagues.
So trying to understand that people have experienced the world in different ways and grown up in different cultural and social contexts.
The foundation really is here mutual appreciation and dialogue.
And I think focusing on the values that you hold together.
First of all, to establish mixed age teams.
So when it comes to the workplace, I'm sure that most people now would value things like flexibility, the opportunity to learn, things which transcend generations.
If managers design their teams from the outset so that young and old people work together, then it's like a lived and normal reality.
Again, I think a really important thing which helps to bridge the generation communication gap is mentorship programs.
One other method is, of course, also to promote knowledge transfer.
So the opportunity to do reverse mentoring, having a mentor from a different generation, and that's a really great way to gain a further understanding of the workplace and to understand people who think differently to you.
It's not the typical way that the older always have to lead the younger generations, but we are also encountering the opposite, right? Where younger people are leading more experienced colleagues.
At the end of the day, we are individuals, so it's really important not to resort to stereotypes like this idea that all of Gen Z are digital natives, for example.
So to create awareness that, for example, leadership, competencies, or skills is not about age, because age is only a number, it's about qualifications.
Although words like gap and difference can be really, really helpful, at the same time, these are labels which can, create a shared identity, which is a good thing, but also create difference and division.
Training and empowering people, that's the key to success.
How is communication changing in the workplace today?
We have an information overload.
We now have 4 generations in the workforce today, so that's obviously a lot of different communication preferences.
We have so many different, not only communication tools, but also collaboration tools.
And obviously now the flexibility of remote working brings into question what communication should look like, and that's relevant to all generations. That affects everyone.
Where and how do you reach the different generations? Because they have different ways of their preferred communication mode.
Their preferences when it comes to communication as well, and placing less expectation on this idea of like people having to respond immediately.
I have one friend who works at an organization that fosters entrepreneurship for teenagers. She said, like, when I'm writing them an email, they're not answering, they're not responding. I experienced the same as well. And then I write them on WhatsApp. Seconds after that, I get a reply. I said, like, did you already see my email? Did you check it? I sent it to you 3 days ago.
Voice notes are extremely popular. That is my preferred way to communicate. I love a voice note.
What we also have is that the tools are changing so rapidly.
More modern ways of communicating, like audio and visual, are being integrated into a workplace context, which is particularly interesting.
Communication is getting faster. It's getting more across many different channels. So we have to adapt to it very rapidly.
How can a more effective communication help in building a better working world going forward?
I think that communication is the most important tool that we have.
I really like one quote from a professor from Germany. She says that at corporate level, communication between old and young only contributes to maintaining innovation and competitiveness if it functions smoothly.
And if we're to look at any challenges or conflicts that occur in the workplace, the majority is caused by miscommunication.
In talking about feedback culture, we also necessarily need to talk about failure culture.
For me, effective communication is essential for companies on 2 fronts.
So good communication makes the workplace better in a way that people don't fear of asking, in interrogation marks, stupid questions.
So one, in creating progressive work-life policies.
It's also about diversity, and I always emphasize that generation management is also diversity management.
And 2, fueling the ability to innovate.
Good communication can boost teamwork.
And I think in the new working world, we need to communicate and tell our employers what we need to be able to shape and enhance our own work experience.
And can also lead to better collaboration.
So communicating the importance of work-life policies, diversity initiatives, sustainable development programs, mentoring programs
can foster innovation.
Left unaddressed through poor communication, I think generational differences can lead to like a misalignment of goals, poor teamwork, greater staff turnover, and just unnecessary conflict.
And can also contribute to the viability of a company.
I think to make these things happen, collaboration.
When companies, institutions are designing new products, right, they should integrate many different perspectives, the young and the old.
So I think it's really important to drive these initiatives by bringing different voices and opinions together.